welcome to members of the AU manufacturing community and to anybody who's randomly dropped by to watch this webinar out of curiosity. We're here to discuss a topic that's sort of new but really isn't. Nearly 2 years ago, ChatGPT-3 burst into our lives and they haven't been the same since. Generative artificial intelligence has moved into more and more places, and there are some real ways where it can be used here and now to save money and drive value. According to a recent Deloitte survey, generative AI use continues to grow rapidly, and in the last 12 months, use in Australian workplaces has increased from 32% to 38% of all employees, a 20% increase in users in less than 1 year. While programs like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, and Stability AI's Dream Studio are getting a lot of the attention, we've been using AI for a long time in one form or another. As Bruce Petty, the founder of electronics manufacturer Blackmagic Design, said this year, it's not new. You could argue the first line of code ever written was artificial intelligence, and I think a lot of investors will get burned on stuff that's not really solving a problem. The second part of his comment is starting to look astute with the hammering of the big tech stocks and the growing view from investors and analysts that the eye-watering hardware, data center, and energy costs perhaps haven't delivered the kind of value that was originally promised. OpenAI's Sam Altman's prediction that the AI revolution will eclipse the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and the internet revolution all put together hasn't quite panned out yet. Give it time though, I guess. But this conversation isn't exactly about revolutions or the value of the Magnificent Seven stocks or the possibility of machines that one day might outperform human beings at a range of tasks. We're here mostly to hear from practitioners who are using AI and creating real-world value right now, and from whom we can hopefully learn a few things that will help us run our companies smarter and better. With a big thanks to SoftLabs for making this presentation possible, I'd like to welcome each of our guests. Joining us today are Professor Cori Stewart, Manuko's Matt Hardie, EMVision's Scott Kirkland, and Xen Zambas from SoftLabs. So let's go first with, I guess, Scott.
Hi there. I'm Scott, CEO of EMVision Medical Devices. Our objective is really to reduce the global societal and health economic burden of stroke, and we are developing and commercializing two portable brain scanner products, a bedside device known as the EMU, and a pre-hospital road and air ambulance device that fits in a backpack.
Nice. Cori?
Hi, I'm Cori Stewart. I run the Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing Hub. We're a not-for-profit. Our job is to, have widespread uplift across manufacturing capability in this country. We are now also the deliverers of the National AI Adopt Centre for Manufacturing. There's a few others, 4 in total, but we are delivering the one around industrial tech and manufacturing. Very excited to be doing this. We're headquartered in Brisbane, but we work nationally and internationally with partners as we need to.
Very good. Matt?
Hi, everyone. My name's Matt. I'm the founder of Manuko. We make premium organic products and chocolate treats that we supply to cafes and retailers across Australia. Our mission is to make extraordinary products that create moments of joy for people while fostering a healthier life and a more sustainable future.
Finally, Xen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Xen Zambas. I'm Head of Sales and Delivery at SoftLabs. SoftLabs is an Australian enterprise software company specializing in industry automation solutions, ERP implementations, technology consulting, project management, software development, and assured services such as testing, cybersecurity, and support. My career really started in the Royal Air Force as an aircraft technician, before moving on to marine engineering and project management. Over the past 20 years, I've been involved in optimizing manufacturing operations and ERP systems. And this is where you find me today, basically helping manufacturers across various industries in improving their processes through ERP systems.
What are we talking about when we're talking about now for AI? And would you like to contrast that to what we were talking about at the beginning of your careers, if we could cast our minds back that far?
So we're really talking about getting machines to mimic human intelligence or in some cases outperform human intelligence. I think if I go back even before I started my career, high school days, it was really novelty, IBM Deep Blue beating Gary Kasparov, the chess champion. And then when I was early in my career, it was algorithms to identify pictures of cats, in the mid-2000s. These days, it feels like it's permeated every area of our lives in often very subtle ways. And given I do a fair bit of travel for work, I think that's probably a reasonable example to share. When I'm trying to buy a ticket for a flight, there's an AI algorithm deciding how much I'm going to pay. When I'm going through immigration at the airport, there's an AI algorithm scanning my face and comparing that to millions of images, trying to make a match. The pilot is assisted with some AI-powered autopilot, which hopefully does a good job. And don't really notice any of those things, but it's everywhere. So it's a bit like a boiling frog analogy, which might be a bit unfair because the impacts are not always negative. They're, of course, overridingly positive for the most part, but it's just very subtle.
Yeah, I think that's a great introduction. Thank you. And I think from my perspective, I think what's happened now with AI is that English is the new programming language. So once you've got generative AI, there's very little barrier between data and people. So the space where you needed high-tech people to be able to interrogate your data in a business, as long as you've got your business set up correctly or in a good way that's going to facilitate it, you've got access to your data, and you don't need to be able to do Python or C++, or you don't need to talk to your tech team and ask them to go and find information for you. Most of your staff, or if not all of your staff, will have access to your data using generative AI. So English being the new programming language is the massive change from my perspective.
And Matt?
Yeah, I was someone who's not coming from a technology background, but just from a practical, everyday standpoint. The difference probably from the beginning to now is just like there was always this idea that robots were coming in and taking all the factory jobs, which might still happen. And me now running a factory, it's not robots at the moment, looking forward to that, helping, but it's more the intellectual tasks that are being taken, or at least it's assisting with that. So I think that's just really interesting how the generative AI is coming in first with intellectual and some kind of creative tasks, which is, I thought it was always the assumption that it was going to be the intelligent robots coming in first. So, yeah.
And finally, Xen.
Well, just casting my mind back, around 10 years ago, AI in manufacturing was primarily associated with basic automation and robotics. This involved using programmable machines to perform repetitive tasks such as assembly line operations or CNC machines. We're all familiar with seeing a CNC machine with various tools going in and transforming a piece of metal into a fabulous piece of machinery. AI was mostly a rules-based system. So cast your mind back to MRP. We've all heard of MRP. That is actually an early version of AI. But it had limited ability to learn from data or adapt to new situations. So we'll move to today, and AI now encompasses machine learning and deep data analytics. So together, these technologies are capable of optimizing entire production processes in areas such as enhancing quality, reducing waste, improving the efficiency of the supply chain, and enabling mass customization of product. So now we're seeing our technologies becoming much more accessible and scalable and easier to integrate. So also there's a bit of a synergy with the emergence and adoption of cloud computing. Now AI has access to masses of data, and it can adapt to changing conditions across the supply chain, which makes it much more versatile and powerful. And it looks like now we are indeed going through a transformative period. And I really agree that, the AI revolution, if you like, is going to surpass Industry 4.0, the Industrial Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, all the way back. It's going to be very, very powerful.
All right. Well, let's stay on the topic of transformation/revolution and go around the room again. Is there a sense here that this time it's different, and this is really an exciting moment that we'll look back on and think, wow, stuff really changed there? Scott, your point of view.
in our day-to-day work environment, when it comes to medical device development and validation, there is an insane amount of documentation involved in that process. And I think the really practical impact is really in research assistance in many ways. So things like literature reviews, which may have taken several hours trawling through Google Scholar, can now be done in a few minutes. From a coding perspective, software engineers love it because they can use it to help write code, debug code, create test cases, makes them a whole lot more productive. So again, it's subtle, it's not transformational, but it's certainly improving productivity in our world.
Cori?
Yeah, I think I was really interested in the kind of the robots, they were meant to sort of take over our factory, and I think, no, they haven't. But if we futurecast a little bit, something really significant has happened in robotics. In February this year, the humanoids became incredibly accessible, or apparently they will become incredibly accessible. So now you can get a unitary humanoid robot which has enormous capability, as complex as a car, if not one of our most advanced robotics, autonomous vehicles, and it's $16,000 US. So it's very hard to be on Australia to be on the ordering list for these. That will be the challenge. But these humanoids will now be able to do any kind of everyday task, including in a factory, where we have been working here at the Arm Hub for the last 6 odd years, implementing robotics and AI into factory environments. And we keep saying, it's a robot, it's just a new tool. Don't give it a name, don't anthropomorphize it. It's just, it's your new grinder, it's your new sorter, it's your new, disassembly tool, or whatever it is. And it doesn't need to look like a human. In fact, you can always think out of the box. You might be inspired by human movements about how you might design something, but, you're free of that constraint. And I think the rapid uptake and advancements in the humanoid robot is actually going to transform all of that. And I'm going to have to walk back on all of that kind of that talk, because they are here. They've got incredible capability, and I think it might take a few years yet to see them in our factories in a kind of everyday way. But it definitely has changed how we are thinking about implementing robotics in a kind of industrial environment. So that's, I reckon, coming. Today, I think what's interesting from my point of view is we can talk a lot about AI, but most companies aren't actually ready for it. So they might have good personal use. I think in Australia, our ability to, as people, we take on new technology quite well. So we'll start using ChatGPT before, we'll have expectations about how we can write and kind of be more productive. But when it comes to the enterprise environment, we just have a legacy infrastructure everywhere, including our data. Our data is very rarely in our companies ready for AI. So my biggest, point and opportunity, I think, for the sector as a whole is to get onto modern data enterprise systems so that you can actually start using your data to do the sort of things you want to do, like visibility of your supply chain, digital twins, all these really important things to becoming highly productive. Like any company could be the next Apple. All the tools are available to them as much as they are to Apple, but it's the company itself, the data is probably not ready. So I think that's actually where we are. So getting your data ready, getting onto modern enterprises, and then starting to use the tools, the AI tools in a modern enterprise environment will actually allow, with good governance, responsible use of AI. All of that is incredibly important at this time.
All right. Well, we'll certainly return to the topic of AI readiness at the enterprise level, and I look forward to doing so. But for now, we'll just hear Matt and Xen give their 5 cents on what we're just talking about.
Yeah, definitely see it as an evolutionary step or leap, especially with ChatGPT. And with like Tesla talking about their, robots becoming their potential main business in the future. Just seeing how that could come together would be, it's just, I see it as a huge evolutionary step forward, and how it can have these real world applications. in factories as well as intellectual tasks and a whole variety of tasks. So yeah, so it's definitely been a game changer.
And Zen?
Yes, well, for me, the biggest thing that confirms to me that this is really happening and it's going to stay is adoption. So implementing ERP systems, the biggest element that you need to worry about isn't the system, it's the people, because you have to help people learn to use the ERP system. Now, an ERP system is very much like a human brain, which is operating on its left side. It's very analytical, it's very structured, and it works on information that it already knows, and it presents you with data. And you have to learn how to use that. Now, in the real world, we don't often work with all the information at hand. There are gaps in what we know. We work in a very dynamic environment, so human beings tend to work a lot on the right side of their brain, very intuitive, very using past experience to make decisions. Now, what we're finding with AI embedded in the ERP system, it can mimic or basically work in a very right brain type way. So it can present you with information in a way that makes you feel that, yeah, this makes sense. We know we don't have some of the information. We know we don't know necessarily exactly where we're going, but this is our best guess. And now ERP systems can do that. So it makes users feel very comfortable that the ERP system is operating in the same world that they are operating in. So it's much easier for them to take on board what the ERP system with AI is providing and using it. So I think there is no going back. We are seeing the transformation now, and it's only going to escalate and accelerate in the future.
Okay, let's throw to Matt now. You mentioned ChatGPT being a game changer, and not everyone's going to see an immediate link between delicious organic treats and artificial intelligence. Could you help them out, please, and show us how you're deriving real-world value from AI at your factory?
Sure. Well, just to Cori's point before, I just see it as a tool. It's just another one of the many tools in the toolkit. And I'm basically, I'd say I use it as a research assistant. So there's a few different ways I've used it. Finding suppliers of different ingredients in different countries, which is actually very hard to do with Google. It's almost impossible. I find it extremely difficult, but ChatGPT is great, although it's also wrong. It provides links which just don't work. And, so there's issues where it sounds intelligent, but potentially is incorrect or lying or something. But that's something else. Generally, it's just been a fantastic at finding different suppliers of ingredients. It's kind of like basically opened up a world to me of, this is the main exporter in Peru of cacao. Or these are the, which are just very hard to find, those like primary sources. Another one is researching equipment and machines used to make certain kinds of products. So I might just be out in the world eating a product. I'm like, damn, this is good. Like, how do they make this? And so I was like, how do they make this product? It's like, well, this is the machine, and they use it, blah, 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 blah. I was like, so what companies supply these machines? And that might not be the best sources, but it's like, now I've got an inroads into what kind of equipment makes this kind of product. So it's kind of like having a bit of an advisor just to go to. It's like, with an advisor that has a lot of knowledge. I've had it also read operating manuals for machines and write draft safety operating procedures. So basing that on best practice and the specifics of the machine. Obviously, it's a draft. And so going over it, ensuring that it's correct and that it, meets our needs and our standards. But generally, it'll add things in there that I find I wouldn't have thought of, or in some ways are surprising, but necessary. And it's been a great learning thing as well. As I go through this, I'm learning a lot as well. I think Paul Graham said something about that this provides an incredible learning opportunity, AI and ChatGPT. for those who choose to use it that way. Another is drafting up staff policies. So just helping with different policies in the business. Doing some new product development assistance. So how does ChatGPT help us with products when it can't actually eat and taste products? Well, it's just, be asking things like, what would be some, good flavor combinations with what could we pair with almond, for example, and give me 10 different options. And I don't know if it would be possible to work with this without having some knowledge in the area, because you can go, oh no, that wouldn't work. Yeah, that fits well. Oh, if I just add this, and so you're kind of using it as like a bit of a starting point. So yeah, some NPD assistance. Asking it to help a lot with copy. So it's great with language. So this could be support with writing blurbs for packaging. And it's a support thing. I always start with like my own version or whatever, our version, whoever's coming up with it, and then getting ChatGPT to help edit it or refine it. And then we will finish it off as well. This is also copy for the website, email marketing, press releases. It can include like social media marketing as well and ideas. And then just like using it as kind of I think of it as like customer service help function for programs that I'm using. So if I'm just like, say, on Gmail or something, and I have a question about Gmail, how do I use this function? Or can I do this? And I'll just ask ChatGPT, how do I do this? It's like, boom, 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 boom. This is how you do it. It's like, oh, okay, cool. So I'd say like that's, primarily what I've been using it for.
Right. It sounds like you're often sort of wanting a set of suggestions, some of which might be perhaps off the mark, some of which might be nearer it, but you're always in there sort of filtering out the bad ones and sort of aware that this thing isn't the gospel truth.
Well, that's the danger, I think, but that's where you have to, at the moment, like follow up the sources. And it's easy for me because I'm following up real sources. Like I need to find an actual supplier, and if the website doesn't actually exist, or it sounds good and the website link looks good, and then I click on it and it doesn't get anywhere. And so I'll write to ChatGPT, please provide website links that work, and then it provides a bunch of website links and half of them don't work again. But that's not always the case. But that kind of stuff happens. Yeah, but you have to filter it out, but that's like using our intelligence anyway. There's a lot of crap on the internet. We have to filter stuff out. So
sure. Well, you mentioned it being like an assistant, and I guess a human assistant is sometimes going to wing it and not know, and perhaps just make shit up. Well, anyway, that's an aside, and let's go on in earnest with the conversation and throw to Scott, please. Artificial intelligence is a fabric of what you're doing. Your foundational technology is AI that came out of UQ with some very, very smart people and some very smart algorithms for detecting and assessing stroke. Tell me about the use of high performance computing, in all of that, in supporting the design and development of your scanners.
Sure. Thanks, Brett. So the common AI solution that I think everyone's probably heard plenty about in healthcare and radiology is solutions that have been trained on CT or MRI images to spot pathologies effectively. And that's post-processing. That's not what we do. So in our scenario, we're using radio frequency signals, and we have antennas in our headset, in our scanners. Here's one, and they send signals. And when they send signals, they transmit, they reflect, and they scatter. And those interactions are incredibly complex. And that's part of the reason this hasn't been pursued earlier. We use AI models to make sense of those signals, which are influenced by the dielectric properties of brain tissue. And then we use that information to figure out whether a patient is healthy or not. If they have a stroke, if they do have a stroke, what type? Is it a hemorrhage or ischemia? So it's signal interpretation. Now, the beauty of creating something for a CT or MR is there is an abundance of data to train your algorithms on. So really you need access to data. You can acquire licensed data sets, and you need smart engineers, and you're off to the races. The downside is it's become a bit of a commodity. when you go to medical conferences, there are hundreds of AI solutions, and it's hard to differentiate. With our system, because it is unique hardware, there were no existing data sets for us to train our AI models on. So we had to create, before we got into the clinic and scanned real patients, we had to create a simulation environment where we could put in the design of our headset, our antennas. We can put in a synthetic human brain that has the dielectric properties of all the different tissue types, and we can do a simulated scan and see what scan data we get, or S-parameter data, and then we can insert a stroke in that brain, different sizes, different locations. And so we've created this synthetic data pipeline. So in the time it has taken us to enroll approximately 250 patients, we have 2,500 simulated cases that closely mirror real patient scans. And it speeds up our development in the absence of existing data sets. And we use the supercomputers, so NVIDIA DGXs, to pump out those simulations. So what may take 3 days on a laptop, with a DGX we can do in an hour.
Right. And so a different kind of interpretation of data at the enterprise level. Let's think about that for a moment, and let's go to Cori. Cori's Arm Hub recently announced a partnership with Databricks, a big company focused on helping companies make use of the data they create. What can you say about lakehouses for enterprises, and why they're something you're supporting SMEs to adopt right now?
The AI lakehouse is really a combination of two existing technologies. Your data warehouse, which is like 40 years old. Like, we're really good at it. Really structured data goes into these things. But when we started to have unstructured data, and by that we mean things like written text, images, video, all of which now we want accessible to be doing AI on, and the synthetic data that we we're just talking about could be an example of potentially unstructured data. Once we started to use that, the technology was called a lakehouse, and it started to come in, and it was kind of early on. It was very much what I'd call a failed technology, because it just stored data and said, "Look, keep all your data. One day you might need it. You might store it in a blob. You might have an SQL server. You might have it on a hard drive. It might be in your ERP system. It might be in your CRM. But anyway, it stored all your data in one kind of lake." And people kind of got familiar with it, and then they said, "This is a problem." And they just called it a data swamp. That was, where the euphemism came from. It's just a big data swamp of stuff. And the problem was you had data that, certain people knew where it was, what it was. You lost control of what the access controls of that data, who could see it, why could they see it, what's the reach, what data was being drawn from it. So this was a problem. And so what Databricks did, and why we're engaged with, we've chosen to partner with Databricks. Databricks has created a combination of those two technologies, and they've called it an AI lakehouse. And it's unifying all of your data, structured and unstructured, under one platform. So it has a shared governance model, so overarching governance model. So your access controls, your security controls. You can have in one place, you can have all your BI, your business intelligence. You can have all your AI, your traditional kinds of AI. So for us, we used to think about that as, to be honest, like computer vision and your robotic systems and your manufacturing supply chain systems. But you can also have your generative AI, and they have all the tools, the most modern tools, to allow you to structure that under that one platform. So we've set up an Arm Hub, an AI lakehouse that we use. We run internal chatbots. So it's called RAG-based chatbots, and I'll talk a bit about that in another moment. But we can use generative AI on that platform. We can have all of our SharePoint data that sits on that platform. We know exactly where it is, who has control, how we're going to use it. And the most important thing is that it's open data. So for some of the existing platforms, every time you migrate your data or ingest your data into them, they get recoded, and that means they are kind of a proprietary data for a particular system. And you don't really want that, because you have to pay for it to be decoded, and you're also often in locked-in contracts, and sometimes indefinite contracts until your data sits in that particular space. So you're getting locked in basically into a contractual relationship with a data provider. So Arm Hub, particularly given our role, we want to avoid that at all costs. So Databricks has an open data environment. So you can put your data in there, and if you want to get your data out, you just get your data out. and it's pay as you go. So it's genuinely sort of pay as you go. So companies can use ours if they're a smaller enterprise and they don't want to set up their own, because it can cost a bit to set this up. I'm thinking, probably somewhere between $500,000 and a few million, depending on the size of your business and the complexity of it. So it allows companies, if they want to get started, working out our workspace and Arm Hub under the same model. And if you're bigger and you want to go on your own, you could set up your own Databricks environment. There are other kinds of environment. Databricks is definitely the lead in this space at this time. So that's why we've set that up. And it allows us to partner, say, with all of our university partners. We have 13 university partners across Australia and a few internationally that are doing the very smart algorithms that might solve problems. But that's only one part of what it takes to run an enterprise. And you need to be able to secure that environment. So you might have your very, very smart algorithms that allow you to do things. I think of critical minerals tech or anything like that, where there's so much data coming in. Might be synthetic data, as we had here, but that's only one part of your business. You've got your ongoing business. You've got your SharePoint, you've got your other data sources, you've got your email, ERP, CRM system. It all should be, in our opinion, unified in one environment. That's what we're striving for, what we've done.
Right. And Xen, I'd like to bring you back into the conversation. Would you perhaps like to expand on some of the trends among ERP providers infusing AI into their product? What's happening now? Would you like to go a little further with the idea of, the left brain, right brain example you were using earlier?
Oh, sure. Yes, this is actually fascinating. The interest and investment in AI among ERP vendors, such as Epicor, is a reflection of the significant potential that all AI technologies have to transform business processes, to enhance decision-making and increase operational efficiency. So now, ERP vendors are increasingly integrating AI capabilities into their solutions in various areas, which is leading to the emergence of what is now known as cognitive ERP, which is more the right brain kind of thinking ERP system. So this concept transforms ERP from what has been a system of record to a more intuitive, AI-powered decision support system. So it provides a more natural user experience, making it easier for anyone to use and gain valuable insights, which will lead them to make better decisions. The ability also to automate routine and repetitive tasks such as data entry, invoice processing, inventory management, what have you, frees up people to make more strategic decision-making activities. And that's really where the value of ERP system in this age will be realized, is enhancing people's ability to make decisions in a very dynamic environment, which is where we find ourselves today. So it really is all about transforming ERP systems as they were developed as really hard structured systems to a more loose but responsive system that enables you to make the decisions you need to make on a day-to-day basis. It's very, very powerful.
And so whenever the topic of AI or anything, well, really any kind of new technology comes up, there's always a question around, this is automating. So what is it automating out of existence? And will that involve, jobs? Of course, people wonder. I don't personally think automation is the antithesis of employment. I do think over time it'll obviously change the way people work, and in aggregate generally for the better. What are some of your points of view around this new wave of AI and how it might transform the workforce? Scott, would you like to have a crack?
Sure. I'll go back to that AI and radiology example, because I think that's often a role that's listed as at risk of the advancement of AI being made redundant, which I really don't think is the case. There are plenty of studies that show the accuracy or the performance of an AI model plus a radiologist is better than a radiologist alone. but that does not mean, it does require that human oversight. So they are always an adjunct tool. They're not a standalone diagnostic tool, and they still need to be sensitive and specific. I hear plenty of feedback from clinicians about certain tools that think everything is a stroke, for example. It's a bit like having a backseat driver pointing out every potential possible obstacle on the road whilst you're trying to drive. It becomes a bit of a distraction. So there is a lot of opportunity to improve their efficiencies, their workflow, to support resource-constrained settings where there are more junior radiologists or less experienced radiologists, but does it replace? Certainly not at the moment, and I can't see in the near or medium term.
And Matt, would you like to consider the same question, and what are your points of view on it?
Sure. Well, I think like with as you're saying, Brent, every technology development, there is a loss of jobs, and there's going to be a creation of a whole lot of new jobs. Like for example, very simple example for me with copywriting, I don't really need to hire a copywriter with ChatGPT. But in the past, I didn't hire a copywriter anyway because it wasn't really a super important thing anyway. In that sense, and that doesn't undervalue people who are copywriters, by the way. But just for me personally, it's like, oh yeah, I don't, this is fine. This is sufficient for that task. But yeah, I think there'll definitely be a loss of jobs. If there's self-driving trucks, there will be no more truck drivers potentially. But there were no trucks in existence a couple 100 years ago. So, there's going to be new jobs invented in the future that we don't even know of or can conceive of now. So I'm not worried about that. I think human beings always need work. For me, work provides a lot of meaning in life. And if we're still here, if AI doesn't kill us, then we still want to. I want to work. I want to contribute, and I think we'll always find a way to do that. And we also, it's also like a good exploration of like what's uniquely human and what makes us unique and important and valuable. AI is just a tool. And you get a better drill, it's going to replace a more inefficient method of doing things. And it's just going to make us more productive, I think.
And Cori, I'm really keen to hear your thoughts.
Oh, yeah. I definitely, my experience is that AI isn't taking jobs. AI is creating jobs because if they're using it well, they're being much more competitive and compelling, and they're, pioneering new business models. They're on quite a fast journey to think about what the possibilities are and how they're going to be at the front of that market. My experience more in the robotics and automation space is that jobs are changing rather than particular people not being employed anymore. So in our world, what would have been, expert polishers, drill specialists, all of these people are transforming the tools that they're working with to using tools that are like mostly collaborative robots. So they literally are still being used as a hands-on sort of tool, and they're part of supply chains. They're just doing their job differently. They might become, and most of the cases are that those people are becoming the programmers of these robots. They are setting the work tasks. They're reskilling mostly on the job, not necessarily through formal training, and they're doing a lot less dangerous and dirty and dull tasks. They're spending a lot less hours doing things that are backbreaking, and they have reskilled, and they cost a lot more for their employers to keep them because they're becoming quite competitive in the workplace. So, it is obvious and well known really in the research now that, automation creates jobs on the whole. There will be some change in what those jobs are, and humans, as I think Matt was really talking about, humans just get to do a higher order set of activities, right? No one can actually make the decision. Like still the human typically that knows what good is or what's appropriate, or a combination of those parts. So that's where the human in the loop is always incredibly important, if not downstream as well.
Right. I'd like to change gears a little. And in the intro, I sort of touched on the idea that some people have that is that we might be in a bit of a generative AI bubble at the moment. Obviously, data centers and all the energy required to power them are incredibly expensive, and this has come at no small cost, building out all the infrastructure needed to put AI assistance on every single thing on the internet, it seems. There are companies, big companies, that are ditching their sustainability goals or altering them because of the energy and other requirements. I don't think, on the whole, it looks like this rate of spending could continue without there being a massive payoff. All that aside, I lead up to the question: do you think that we might be slow, or that we might never see the predicted payoff from all this money being spent on AI at the moment? Is there a bubble? Whoever wants to have a go at that question, you're welcome to.
Yes, it's a fair question, but I also think it's somewhat unfounded. We are already seeing massive uptake of AI-driven processes, which have transformed production lines, for example. So a lot of existing manufacturing paradigms have been thrown out of the window, because with AI-enhanced data, there are better decisions being made and more complex decisions being made, and being able to react in a more timely manner. So now we have, for example, highly custom-driven production lines, which in the past would have been very difficult to even provide a schedule in time to respond to customer demands, whereas now it's much easier to achieve. And we're seeing the adoption happening at a really rapid pace. In fact, the pace of adoption is so rapid that it's surpassing the ability to measure the impact of it. By the time you've done your KPIs and your analysis of what benefits you have derived from this new decision, you're already on to the next one and building on that one. So yes, I think it's fair that there can be a degree of hype, and we should see AI with a great deal of skepticism at times, as Matt has offered. You can get information which is questionable, but I think that is going to fall off quite rapidly, and especially where we have AI engines which are now built on our particular data set. Thinking about an ERP environment where we're looking at our own data. We're not going out to the web for our information. It's analyzing our own data, which is dynamic in nature, and coming up with actionable points which are more reliable. So we're going to be in the manufacturing environment where you're using ERP systems. We are going to be seeing a situation where if it doesn't have AI, you will be falling behind. You will not be able to run effectively, because all your competitors will have AI-driven ERP systems, and they will be able to respond much quicker, much more dynamically, efficiently, and drive higher value out of their systems than companies that don't.
Right. Anyone else want to have a look at the question of hype?
Well, I definitely think the genie's out, and I think the bigger questions that you're kind of indicating are, for me, a national sovereignty issue about having access to the NVIDIA chips. So I'm glad EMVision has some capability there in supercomputing, but the HC100s or Australia, I think, might have one of those, and we're so far down on the purchasing power list that it's difficult to see how any sovereign actual AI model of any magnitude or ongoing value will be actually created with Australian sovereign data. I think that's a really big question when you start to think about critical data like law enforcement data, health data, environmental data. Like we just don't have the same capability. All of our AI models essentially and AI algorithms that particularly have generative AI have been built off models made elsewhere with other people's data. So that's going to be a big issue for the country to grapple with, and maybe that's above my station and pay grade to really be dealing with. But that's a critical issue, and it's an issue that we're going to face in robotics too. Now that there's billions and billions being poured into humanoids as the frontier of robotics for the future. So those things will happen to us to a certain degree. What we need to be is fast adopters. We need to be smart at being able to take it forward. But other than that, the cat's out of the bag. I mean, we also, in terms of the energy for these systems, that's absolutely a problem. But I think you'll find that we're going to do what humans tend to do best, is try and find solutions to that problem, not walk back on AI. So the solutions to that problem will be very large sources of renewable green energy. So, and it will be putting supercomputing power right next to those sources of power. So large scale, like, I don't know, I think Australia, we've got probably 4 or 5 regions where we would put major supercomputing power based on the fact that they're going to need renewable energy at scale.
Sure. A lot of topics worth looking up after this discussion has ended, all of them above my pay grade, but certainly ones I'm curious about. So another bigger picture question, further than the cost and resources, are there any concerns from our panelists about the broader societal effects of AI being everywhere? For example, in the education system, where it might be harder to know who's qualified and who's not because it's so easy to plagiarize, to laziness, to perhaps a feeling of disconnection because I'd rather, I'm too lazy to write someone an email. I'll just get a chat GPT to compose it, and us perhaps becoming more and more inward looking as a result. I don't know. You've all seen Black Mirror. You can all think about what if technology, but too much type questions. Does anyone have any concerns about the long-term impact of AI being everywhere and in everything?
Where do we start? Well, something that's probably close to your heart, Brent, is in independent journalism. What is true, what is not, and the proliferation of fake news. That's obviously an issue. Algorithms deciding what content we're consuming, and who's verifying that content is legit. But I think AI development itself is largely self-policed, right? It's either policed by the organizations themselves or by market forces, and that may be consumer backlash. Something's released, there isn't a positive response, and then the companies will tweak and update and re-release. So I think in the future there is going to be some requirement for tighter regulation. I don't know who's best equipped to provide that. It may not be governance. They may not have the AI expertise to do so, at least today. So don't have a solution, but I certainly see in a decade's time who's regulating all of this. That will be a key question.
Xen, perhaps?
It's actually a very big question because, looking at it at a company level, what's the dangers of adopting or not adopting versus the societal level is massive. I mean, for example, smartphones, we all have smartphones now. A few years ago, we didn't, and our ability to bring about new technology and use it far surpasses our ability to create the societal structures that we need to manage those technologies effectively. Look at the problems we're facing with social media. That's because, yes, we have the technology and we're using it before we have put any societal rules, norms in place to manage them effectively. So that's a very big question, and it's something that we need to be very careful of and work on as a society, as a culture. But at a company level, adopting it and having an over-reliance on AI is a potential problem, because you need to have some healthy skepticism about the AI output and watch for these sort of hallucinations that it comes up with or can come up with. I think that tends to fall away the more you use the AI engine in your system, and then you start to build your own, basically, understanding of what it can truly deliver. There are other problems and challenges. Integration with other systems. There needs to be an effort put into effectively incorporating AI into the overall business system, not just the ERP system. It is quite easy to get an AI tool and start using it, and it can have an effect on the business, which it may not be understood when that technology starts to be used. So it's worthwhile taking a very careful, structured approach into what is it that we want to use, what are the workflows that we want to improve, and what is the best way of doing that? Is it by adopting AI in this particular process or not? Other issues are around, as been mentioned before, data quality and security. Ensuring the quality of the data and its security while it's being used by AI is absolutely crucial. And it's very easy to put in AI tools in place and unknowingly, unwittingly compromise your data security. And then there's finally an adoption gap. As I mentioned, companies that don't adopt AI are going to fall behind competitively and are likely to fall by the wayside. And, you don't want to be one of those. So it's a matter of being very careful about where you can use AI and taking a very structured approach on how you implement all that.
Right. And so you guys have been very generous with your time, and I'm aware that we're almost out of it. Before we say goodbye, however, I'd like to give everyone a chance to make their final observations, perhaps have a free kick if they want, or mount a hobby horse that that they might do sometimes. Just, whatever you want to say, the floor's all yours. Let's go around the room, starting with Scott.
I'll just suggest an interesting resource for anyone interested in AI and radiology. A publication called Aunt Minnie has a pretty good newsletter database that keeps you up to date on the latest advancements. So that's a helpful resource.
Sorry, how's that spelt?
Aunt Minnie.
Okay.
MINNIE.
Okay.
I think it's meant to refer to a pathology in a radiology image that even Aunt Minnie could spot. Something very obvious, but don't quote me on that.
Blind Freddy or something.
Exactly.
It's female equivalent.
Yeah.
Cori, your point of view.
Yeah, I think my point is there are AI frameworks, and in Australia we've called it responsible AI frameworks in the whole. They are really useful. They exist. They are there to identify and help structure and give you the thought processes that you need that Xen was talking about, and I've touched on as well, around how to go about making sure you've secured your data, you've done it safely. And why it's an imperative, not just a nice to have, is there are AI standards that are also coming through. There's some that already exist around your security and privacy. There are more coming. They are going to impact and be required of big and small businesses. So originally a lot of standardization requirements weren't pushed down to small to medium enterprises, but these will be, in terms of how you report in your supply chain, how you can apply through different global supply chains, and the expectation, how you engage with government. They're all coming. Don't be afraid. There's a whole lot of help that's being ushered forth with them. We are one of those resources, but really that we are kind of a channel that the government's using through their National AI Centre to start to land some of this information in a way that's not there to say, don't use AI, don't be scared. It's just that this is what you have. These are really well thought through tools to help you think about while you're doing it. It's things like data drift and things you might not have thought about it will just make sure that they're part of your consideration. So it's not there to deter you, it's just there to help you. That's really important. I just want to make a plug for one of the things we recently launched our AI in the medtech sector with the Growth Centre MPT Connect. So we're running AI sprints for companies. Right now, the applications are open, and there'll be another round coming for the medtech sector, specifically as an accelerator. We work with all industries, but this one is up and running with an accelerator, and will have its own pace and own program. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt, and then Xen, please.
Yeah, just last thing I'd say is I see it as an extraordinary tool, a great tool for work and for doing stuff with, for extraordinary learning as well. And then just back to that previous question about the societal potential negative impacts, that it's a double-edged sword, like any technology. I think Steve Jobs said the smartphone was like a bicycle for the mind, or was supposed to be like a bicycle for the mind. And just with the exponential rise in anxiety and depression with social media use and things like that, it's kind of the antithesis. It can be the antithesis of a bicycle for the mind. And I think it's the same with AI. There's a lot of those potential downsides with the loss of human-to-human interaction potentially, and surveillance, maybe lying, like ideology infused within it. But yeah, if it's used well, if it doesn't use you but you use it consciously, then I think you can just use it and put it to good use like any other tool.
No, totally agree, Matt. So in particular around manufacturing and ERP systems, a couple of useful resources are research companies such as Gartner and IDC. If you want to separate the wheat from the chaff of all the AI noise that is going on and find tools, find areas where you're going to get some good value information, particularly around manufacturing and ERP, those are two good resources. Another one is focus on attending industry conferences and webinars such as this, so that you learn more about the specific areas of AI to do with manufacturing. The other one is obviously engage with your ERP vendor or the ERP vendor that you're going to choose if you're implementing an ERP system, to understand what the AI roadmap is and what the current capabilities are. Join manufacturing associations and offer AI-focused content. And consider running some pilot projects where you pick a particular application that you want to improve and come up with a project team that will research, analyze, and test AI tools that will help that process. Stay updated with publications from academic sources, although that is quite time-consuming. And the final thing is, remember that start small on a specific focused area, and then as you prove that, then gradually scale and incorporate more and more functionality in the AI engines across your enterprise.
Wonderful. Some good practical advice, and that's what we're here for. So a final huge bit of thanks to our wonderful panelists, Xen, Matt, Cori, and Scott. Appreciate you donating your time, and I hope it's been fun.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's everything from our panelists and from me. Thanks for tuning in. If you're not already, be sure to sign up for AU Manufacturing's newsletter, follow us on our social media channels, and join the Australian Manufacturing Forum LinkedIn group. See you next time.